School of Rock.
For the purposes of this election, I mean, let's be honest, Trump just won. He won. Not only did he survive an attempt, he stood up without knowing whether there were other shooters there. He stood up and faced the crowd and raised his hand and said, "Fight, fight, fight." That's it. You do that, you win. And by the way, I happen to notice that the crowd, which also didn't know whether there were other shooters, who watched Trump get shot in the face, they did not bolt. It wasn't like a fire in a theater, actually. They sat there, they watched him intently, and when he stood up, they applauded him, and many cried. Why is that? Because a brave leader gives his people heart. That's why. That's exactly why.
Yes, a few days ago, I did a video about Jack Black getting backlash on social media and almost being deported in Australia after Trump comment. Recently, something happened. Before we even go into that, take a look at this.
I have been doing a lot of observing. And one thing I've noticed about the left over the last few years, besides being incredibly intolerant to anyone or anything that isn't perfectly aligned with their views, is they will look for things that are not there. So in regards to Trump, for example, they want him to be this bad guy. They want him to be Hitler reincarnated. They want to dehumanize him. I, unfortunately, just watched those women on The View telling people not to fall for the act of humanizing Trump after the RNC had one of his grandchildren come on stage to give people a more personal insight into who he really is behind the curtain. And because that didn't match the image that they've created inside their heads, they're going to continue with their raging, manufactured hatred. While he is human, contrary to your delusions, and treating him as though he's not for the last 10 years is how we got here. Shall we discuss Biden's family life and how he showered with his daughter and acts like one of his grandchildren doesn't even exist? Is that humanizing for you? You cannot preach unity and then in the same breath continue with the same hateful rhetoric that caused an attempted assassination. But at least you're making it obvious that you've yet to learn anything about unity, respect, and dignity.
Yes, it is getting bad for this man. Tenacious D, musician Ga, has deleted an Instagram post in which he apologized for his controversial jokes about Trump's attempted assassination. Gaz, who formed half of the comedy rock band alongside actor Jack Black, had made a reference to the shooting of former President Trump that took place in Pennsylvania last weekend. The incident has seemingly caused a rift between the two bandmates, with Black publicly condemning Gaz's joke.
Don't miss Trump next time.
I was at a Tenacious D concert in Australia. It was Jack Black singing happy birthday to one of his bandmates, and that was his bandmate responding. Tenacious D has canceled the rest of their tour. Black stating he was blindsided. Or blindsided. You would have addressed it right then and there. You wouldn't have waited for the video to go viral, and you wouldn't have waited for the Australian senators to call for your deportation. You're not mad that it happened, you're mad at the backlash. If you haven't noticed, there is somewhat of a reckoning going on right now. Zip TikTok has been on a rampage since Saturday. People who got way too comfortable in their perceived anonymity online, comments from Facebook, making those people wildly popular. They missed shaking my head. Social media deletion. We were inches away from freedom. 3 pages of groveling on the internet for forgiveness. Yipes. Super bummed that they missed deleted social medias. And his company is handling the matter internally. Little to the right next time, please. An entire page of groveling on the internet for forgiveness. And he's resigning as fire marshal and fire chief. Damn, someone just barely missed. Fired. If you're gonna shoot, man, don't miss. Fired. Right? Like, bro, work on your skills. Fired. Rednecks, next time the shooter isn't going to miss. Fired, but not after trying to tell everybody on Facebook that he had been hacked. Shoot, if only he would have had his scope sighted correctly. Fired. During these discussions that I'm having on X about this whole thing, there is some people in the comments saying, okay, so it's cool now that the right is doing cancel culture. Cancel culture is okay now. If you would have asked me this question a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I would have said no. Would have said no, that it's not okay, that we need to do better. I spent years warning you that the tides were eventually going to turn and that some of you were too far to one side in order to pivot and make it back to the middle. And you doubled down, laughed in our faces. You took that power trip and you ran with it. Good people get tired of being good to ungrateful people. Even Jesus flipped a table every now and again. I refuse to feel bad for someone who devalues human life in such a way.
According to TMZ, Tenacious D gas dropped by talent agencies after Trump comment. They cancelled the show and they are facing deportation in Australia. Something is happening. Tenacious D singer But the wish about taking out Trump has turned into his worst nightmare because his management team is cutting him off, TMZ has learned.
A few days ago, in the context of the assassination attempt against Donald Trump, I exposed the German comedian El Hotzo. He posts satire on X, and this is where he grew his incredibly large audience of around 700,000 followers. What is very important to note is that he is not just any comedian, he is paid for by the legacy media, which is taxpayer funded. And I have observed his account for years. He blocked me a few years ago because he's against anyone who challenges his very openly Marxist beliefs. And he often just so borders the line of going too far and wishing the absolute worst on people. Now, with the assassination attempt, he showed his true colors, and he made a post to show that he wishes Donald Trump had died. This post is deeply vicious, and it has come to my attention from many friends in my home country that this is an attitude that is supported by many. He reposts Elon, who said, "If I die under mysterious circumstances, it's been nice knowing you." And El Hotzo comments on this, saying, "No tweet has ever given me as much hope as this one."
You might be wondering where I got this information. Elon Musk retweeted this video. Someone watching there on the leading US presidential candidate and myself is paid to do so by the German government. That is the question mark he put out. We have seen a lot of people advocating this on social media. From what I learned from this video, some have been paid to do that, especially when they have a large following. You know, a lot of these liberals came out to say, oh, this was staged, this was like this. I was asking myself, so the blood, somebody will stage something that will almost take his brain off to stage this. I was sad at a certain point because it is insane to think of it. A lot of people have debunked this conspiracy liberals are putting out. At first, I used to get like, oh, conservatives are the ones spewing conspiracy online. But the story is different from Trump case, from what I've observed these few days. Some got so excited, really wishing that Trump should not be alive, which is something. I will say this again. If you disagree with someone politically, never wish them dead. Yeah, you should be able to have this conversation with them frequently, maybe convince them to believe your own way. People coming out to, advocate for certain kind of things on social media, it is uncalled for.
We were a centimeter away from half of the problem being gone, and you missed!
That is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic.
Neo-Nazi. But anyways, I'm not even going to talk about Trump right now.
The grade you gave it?
I gave it an A.
And why'd you give it an A?
I
want you to listen to a little bit of what...
Here's where I thought it was lacking. He said the political rhetoric's gotten too hot.
And finally, new rules.
If you looked at the moment that you heard that assassination,
just to be clear.